So welcome back everyone to the Mastering Selenium sessions. We're still in our Selenium IDE and what we will do today is we will focus on element identification. Okay, why is it very important for you to master this? What is it that you need to do to be able to write your own element identification tags or syntax using xPath or any other way, and we will try and do our own tests on IDE without record and run using this. Okay, now the way we will go about doing it is again in a practical manner. What we will do is I will start with the application that we were working earlier and continue in the same direction, right? Okay, so we have created two test cases. Did we automate both of these test cases? I believe so. So if I open facebook.com first, and I also go and web developer to Selenium IDE, I should be able to open both the test cases that we have done so far. Okay, let's open them. So once you click on open and you go to the folder where you have saved those tests, you should see those test cases as HTML documents, right? So in fact, if you open them as simple files, it will open up in a browser. If I open it using IDE like I'm doing right now, it will load all the steps out here. Okay, so I can do something called as create a new test suite. New test suite is nothing but you can add different test cases under one test suite. Okay, so I can say add test case, select the test case 1. Okay, then I can say add another test case and select the test case 2. Now what we have done is we have created two test cases one after the other. Okay, so here is my test case 2, here is my test case 1. Once I double click on each of them, you will see that specific test case steps are shown on the right side. Is that clear? So test case 1, test case 2, the steps for each of them, once you double click it, will be shown on the right side. The way we do it is you go to file, you can say either new test suite or to the same one, just say add a test case. And those test cases will come up out here. Now what you could do is, how can I, okay, let me delete this untitled test case. I don't need it. Okay, now I can save this test suite as FB, I'll say SU TS test suite 001. Okay, that contains all my test cases for that. Okay, so now you have two options. You can play the entire test suite. Do you see this? Or play only one test case. So you can do either of them. When I say play, it is actually run. So you can click on play the entire test suite, but let me make sure that we have good visibility of the application and see how the test run happens. It is a great tool for you to just play around with. Okay, you should definitely try and spend time playing around with the tool and just making sure that things are working correctly for you. Okay, so first test case is a fail. Now it is executing the second test case. At the end of the run, that is when you will see what is happening. Now, while this test is happening, let it continue, please. I need to spend a couple of minutes talking to you about automation more. Okay, so we are talking about automation testing, right? We're talking about automation testing. So as part of this automation testing, what happens is you will need to be very smart to identify how to automate, number one. Also to be able to do something called as a debug. Okay, we will do more of debug when we get into the programming aspect, but even if it is an IDE, you need to do something called as a debug your scripts. Okay, number one, team, do understand that you are migrating or you're already in the path of migration from being a manual testers, okay, to automation. So that means that as part of automation testing, you know some tools, okay. You also know some programming language to make those tools more efficient, reusable and accurate. Okay, so you also know programming languages. So you are migrating and you are going in this direction. So whatever programming you need, we will learn it. But as part of this, you should understand that you are writing programs in some fashion or the other. Even if it is in HTML format that we're using IDE, it is almost a program. So one, you're writing programs. Okay, you are now also developing something. Two, when you do it, there will be defects, there will be bugs, there will be errors that will happen, because that is the reason you and I are here, because the development cycle happens. But there could be defects that could happen at any stage. It is a human error, or even the systems can fail, and hence there is a need for testing. So there could be defects, there could be errors or bugs. Not much in terms of a difference on the definition standpoint, but something that is not working correctly. So three, that means that you will need to test your own code and fix those things. Okay, that means that whatever you do has to work correctly. If it doesn't work correctly, everything is going down the drain. So debug is a way for you to test the code that you wrote and make it defect and error free as much as possible. Okay, debug is a way to do that. Do note that this is very, very important. Debugging is an extremely important thing. Now, if you use this word several times in an interview, it is going to help you significantly. Why? Because then people will know that you're actually someone who will do hands-on. So if someone asks you things like, okay, have you done tests with IDE? Yeah, I've done it, but I don't depend on too much. But at the same time, I know if there's issues, I can easily debug using IDE, or I can go back to the programming, also do some debug runs. What that tells is that you are not just talking as a test engineer anymore. You're talking something more like a developer as well. All right. So those small things are very important in how you communicate. Now, what is debug and how do you do it? Debug, as I told you, is to take the errors out of the programs that you write, correct? So in Selenium IDE, for example, now we have done this. Okay, where is this IDE? Okay, seems like one test case failed, one test case passed. So what happened? What is the cause of it? That root cause analysis is very important. Okay, so you should know what is the source of that cause. One source of the cause, team, is the IDE, whatever code you have written, the HTML code or whatever. So that thing that you've written is something wrong. Okay, so you could say that you have done a mistake and you may have to go and verify. The other alternate is the application under test. The application itself is at fault. So then what do? Then you can report an error and you can say that there is a defect in the application, right? Or you could also have things like some data points that you provided. What text are you using? What is the email accounts that you used? Are you on the using the correct names? Is your test case correct? All that information is also important. So to identify if the issue is at your code that you've written right now at IDE, or in the application and then it's a defect, or in the data that you provided. Okay, so the last thing that you should suspect as a culprit is the application. Why? Because if you have an issue here, but you assume that the issue is application and you log a defect, the developer teams will come back screaming saying that you can't even test your own code. How are you going to test or develop anything, right? So you don't want to put any false positives or give any false errors that will get rejected. So what you should do is first make sure that your code is correct. Make sure that your what data information test case that you've written is correct. If both of them are right, then you go and attack the application. That is how you basically try and start the debug. This is one step into the debug process. Once you do this, then you get into, okay, this is the problem. Now let's see where is the problem. Which line is it occurring? Is it this line? Is it this line and this line? So let's say that I go to the IDE and I go to the test that was recently run. Now do you see I have open, type, click and verify text present. You must fill in all of the fields. So what do you do, team, to see if it is correct, if it is working correctly or not? What you should do is rerun that specific test case. Okay, so just select that test case and say run this test case only. See if it is putting that information on the application. It is entering the information. Is it clicking on sign up? And you must fill in all of the fields. This has come up now. Why didn't it come up earlier? Why did it come up now? Why did the error occur earlier and not now? So if you go back to the log, you will see the first time when I did the thing, there was an error. This text was not present. So it seems to be occurring sometimes, it doesn't seem to be occurring the other times. What could be the cause? Is it because my application is wrong? Is it because my test is wrong? Or did I give any wrong values or information here? What do you think? So you should be able to look into that issue and be able to answer it. So the issue seems to be more pointing to, and like most of the people are already putting up in the chat, is that you see that in the other test we put a pause of 1000 milliseconds. Why did we do that? We did that deliberately because the page is taking some time to load before it goes to the next one. And hence, if I go here, you can do the same. Insert new command and say the command out here is pause, and you put the value as 1000 milliseconds. Okay. We can also put click and wait. Now, what click and wait does, team? So let's say click and wait. Click and wait is the command, is the what that we want to do. Okay. The target is the where, name equals web submit. In fact, element identification, we're getting there now, team. Now, click and wait is what you performed. Okay. If this is what you performed, let's say click is what you performed. So what is the difference between this and click and wait? Click and wait is basically you click on an element, then you wait for the page to load while that before you go to the next step. The reason the click and wait is important is, let's say that I'm going from one page to the other in an application. For example, if you take ITeLearn itself, all right, take ITeLearn, and if you click on any specific sections on the website, all right, what is happening? Let's say I click on live projects and I go to QA live project. So once I click, is it taking time to load the page? Yes, it is taking about 3-4 seconds to load the page. That means that there is a certain amount of time that is required for the page to load. And hence, it is navigating from one page to the other. That is the reason you are not able to, you need to have click and wait. But in this case, you are in the same application, on the same page. It is just one small element that is loading up here in the same page. So the page itself is not loading. It is just dynamically getting some more elements within it. Okay. So hence the click and wait may fail. We will explore more between click and wait later, but just use click for now, please. Okay. Okay. So now we have both these test cases. All right. So we got an error and we identified it. In fact, I feel more happy if you get more challenges, because every time you get a challenge and every time you solve something, you will learn something new. That is how you got to do. So team, please, I gave you an assignment already. Go back and complete more test cases through this process that we have done. All right. Now let's move to element identification. Very, very important area for us. So in these two test cases, where are the elements? The elements are basically the where portion. Okay. And they are there in the target column. Okay. The way Selenium tries to identify these elements is by looking at certain information in the HTML for that specific element. Okay. The way it does is it uses some unique identifiers to be able to say what that is. And those identifiers are something called as attributes on your page. Okay. So for element identification, okay, you need some attributes and or sometimes also called as properties and their value for it. All right. Now let's talk about some of these. So for example, if I want to identify this first name, how do I do it? The way Selenium IDE does it is it goes into the HTML code of this element. How can I do that? Right click on it and say inspect with Firebug. inspect this specific element with Firebug. This is after you already done the Firebug installation like I showed you in the session 2. Okay. Now, in here, this is the code for that specific element that you're looking at. Okay, so go back. I've just maximized the window. I lost that focus there. And right click inside inspect element. There you go. This is the highlighted code. Now, this entire block of code is what is representing this specific element. Okay, the way a HTML line of code works is it has a tag at the beginning and a tag at the end, greater than, less than at the beginning and greater than at the end, and everything within it is used to get the information about it or show how it is. So let me paste that value. Oops, sorry, it's hung up. Give me a second, please. Why is it? It's interesting. See, it is. There's something that it's doing in the back end. I don't know what it is that's doing. As soon as I click on it, it says Firefox not responding. Still weak. Okay, just hold on. Now it's selected. I think it's a little slow. Okay, let me give it a couple of seconds and let me not overkill it. Still not responding. Okay, it has done many actions, but slowly. So let me repeat it. Inspect element with Firebug. Go to the HTML portion. You also have the other ways to look at the CSS and some more information. We are only sticking with the HTML portion. Okay. So now I can select this entire text, which is the one which is taking a long time for some reason. We Control C on it. Now let me see if it is copied. Okay, there you go. So now I've copied that entire HTML code. Okay, that entire HTML code, I've copied it here. Now, how to identify what this is? The way you have to do it is each of these words has a specific meaning for HTML. Okay, so please do watch the HTML videos. It is very critical for you to get some basic HTML knowledge. But primarily, input tells what type of an element that object is. Okay, that element is basically an input where a user has to input some value or information into it. Or it could be even a button. It just doesn't have to be a keyboard input or a text input. It can also be a mouse input where you're clicking on it or you're dragging and so on. Okay. Then there is something called as an ID and there is a value for it. Then there is another thing and there's value for it. Then another thing and value for it. Each of these things that you see are the attributes or element properties. Okay, these are the element attributes or element properties. Class is another attribute. Text underscore, type is the attribute. Area label is an attribute. Placeholder is an attribute. Value is an attribute. Name is an attribute. Okay, so what Selenium does is first it looks at either an ID if it is there. Okay, not every property for every element is needed. Okay, so you might see a lot of places where there's just input, okay, and then it will just say value equals so and so and name equals something. All right, at that time it may not use ID. So the first thing it will try and see is there an ID that it can use to identify that element. If it is there and it is enough to identify, it will take that. Or is there a name? Or is there a combination of something else? Or then we will talk about xPath. Okay, so what it does is to figure out what is enough for it to identify. Very simple example. Okay, if I want to identify someone from my team who's attending right now, all right, there are about 65-70 people in this session right now. If I need to identify someone from this session and say hi to them, then I can speak out their name. But what if it's the same first name? First name is enough for me to identify someone from a 65-70 people audience. But what would happen is that sometimes if there's the same first name, then I need a last name. If I don't have those, then I have to use a date of birth or a phone number or a social security number and so on. So till I identify that element uniquely, I need to go about using different techniques. The way elements are identified initially by Selenium IDEs, it will check if there's an ID and if there's a value for it, it will use that. Or if there is a name, if there's a value for it, it will use that. So ID is the first one, then name is also used right after ID as the second one. Then it will take that value and put it in the Selenium IDE. Okay, now for example, all right, let me see. One second, please. I'm just trying to make sure that I have the pages here. Okay. So I'm going to minimize the Firebug out here right now and see for first name what is used in the test case here. Let's go with TC001. You can see ID equals first name is the one shown. So if you go to the target and click on find, you will see that is there. ID equals last name is the one that is shown. If you go and say find, you will see it. ID equals reg_email and so on. That is how you can go about identifying if you already have an ID. So let's say that I add a new test case here, okay, or let's say new test case, and I'm going to rename this to the same thing, FB SU TC003. Okay. In this case, I'm only going to do a first name, last name, and click on sign up. That's what I'm going to do. So how am I going to do? The first command is what thing? Open. Open what? The same root folder or home folder as it is already always there. The next one is to click on first name. Is that correct? Do I need to click here to enter text? No. What I need to do? I need to type something there. So how do I do it? I can say type. And what is it that I want to type? I want to type, let's say, Sam. All right. Now, can I say find? What is happening when I say find? Error, locator not found. Is it correct? Sam is the value that I want to type. So where should this be? It should be in the value field. How about the target? The target is the place where you want to do it. So do we know the target? No. Right click, inspect element with Firebug and go to that specific section for that element. There you go. Do you see an ID here? Yes, an ID attribute and the value is first name. So what you do is you write out here ID. Oops. Whenever I'm using Firebug, the system, the Firefox is slowing down. I think I should downgrade the Firebug to an earlier version in case this continues to happen. But any small operations on it, if you see, it is taking away some time from me. So ID equals first name. Now what I will do is I'll say find. Can I find it? Yes, good. So my step is done. Second step, same thing, type. Okay. Now what? ID equals. Hopefully there is an ID, but the way to do it is go there and say inspect element and say ID, I see the value here is last name. So I say last name. All right. And the value, let's say, is Cos. Sam Cos is the name of the person. Okay. Now, before you confirm it, make sure you hit on find and make sure that is there. Why? Because you will use this many a times. You will write your test cases once. You will execute them multiple times. It is important to make sure that what you do is correct because you're reusing them. All right. Since you reuse, you want to make sure that you do the right thing on it. Now, what do? I will click on the sign up. So I'm going to repeat the same steps. Sam and then KAUSS course, and then I'm going to click on sign up. Okay. So once I click on sign up, I expect this field, but let's also see what is sign up here. So here I'm going to say type, all right, as the command, and the target is sign up. Right click, inspect element with Firebug, and now do I see an ID here? No, there is button, there is class as an attribute. Button is the HTML tag team. Okay, class is an attribute. Then there is something called as on click. There is something called as type. Then there is a name. So which one can I use? Let's try name. So I'm going to say name equals web submit. All right. Now let me say find. Do I find name equals web submit? Why not? Is it not correct? Or is it because I used double quotes? The earlier ones, if you see the syntax, there is no quotes there, and then it found it. Now it is able to find it. Can you see it? It is actually highlighting it. Otherwise, it will also show an error here, but we are unfortunately not able to see it clearly on the page. But it is doing a short highlight for a second in green. Okay, but it is also doing it on the xPath. So this is working correctly. And finally, what do I need to do? I need to do a verify text. And verify text is all about what is the text that you want to verify. Copy that and put that here. In this case, there is nothing like a target for it. There is nothing like an xPath or an element identification. It is the exact text. Now let us run this test and see how it works. So you have created a test case. Now we will execute the test case. So we opened Facebook, we have gone to the home page, and finally we did everything. Verify text, this has not come. Why? Now you tell me, team, how do we debug this issue? Is it an application error? I don't know. Is it my data error? We don't know. Is it the IDE script error? We don't know. But the first thing is, let's see if there's anything issue with the data. Sam calls, I think this is okay. This is not showing up also on the application. That means definitely that something is not done as part of this whole process. Why? What is wrong? Anyone? We got to use pause. Oh, correct. I forgot to use pause. Let's say insert new command. But don't you think that even without using pause, at least on the application, the text should show up? Correct? So even if I use pause and I say 1000 milliseconds, do you think this may solve the issue? Not necessarily. Why? Because it should show up here. So okay, I paused for 1 second. Now it still fails. Why? It's supposed to show up here. Is it because the element is incorrect? If the element is incorrect, it will tell me that element is correct. Let's go to the log and see. Log just tells me where it failed. But is it the place the error has been inserted? So again, here the issue is not about identifying the solution team. Okay, if anyone looks at it, even I know the solution for sure, but it is not about identifying the solution. It's not like raising your hand and saying, hey, I know the answer, I know the answer. I want to know the process of how you identified the answer, because that is debugging. So where is the problem occurring? What could be causing that problem? Do you have a fix for that problem? Can you then fix it and test it again and see? We thought pause was the problem. Okay, we inserted that pause and did it handle it? No, it didn't solve it. Then you have to go to the next one. So that is how you go about doing it. Now, for example, the way to do it is, hey, why is it not showing up sign up here? This text here. After you click on sign up, let me see if it does it. Yes, it is doing it. What does it mean? Looks like the application is not clicking. Why is it not clicking? Let's go and see. I see type name equals web submit. Yeah, name equals web submit. This is correct. Target is correct. Not sure? Click on find. Is it highlighting? It is doing some kind of highlight here. Then what? Command type. Do you type on a button? You don't type on a button. You click on a button. Now, for a lot of you, this could be a very easy thing to identify. but doing the same thing over and over again on various issues and increasing the complexity will what make you the expert at the end. Now, why did it fail? Now you tell me, team, why did it fail? Again it failed, right? Why did it fail? The log says you must fill in all of the fields not found. Do I see it here? Yes. Then why can't I see it there? That means there's something wrong with this sentence. Application not fail. I can see it. So still there is something wrong with this. Is it because there is a space at the end? What happened when we did it in the first test case? Same thing, right? You must fill in all of the fields. And here you must fill in all of the fields. There is no difference at all. So for some reason we don't know why this is occurring. See, this is really unknown, and that is the reason IDE is not all that great in terms of doing, but still you will see some of this should work. It's still not working. Why? This I don't. In fact, even I don't know why it's not working. Anyone has an answer for it? Zoom could be. See, what is verified text? Let's see. Verified text, the text of the works gets the text of an element. This works for any element that contains the text. This command uses either the text content or inner text of the element, which is rendered text shown to the user. What is the one that I used here? The value is the same, but the command is verified text present. Do you see this? Even, in fact, I thought verified text was correct, but unless I saw something that I recorded earlier, I could now confirm that probably it is verified text present. The command itself that we gave was wrong. And the only way to master all these commands, team, is by doing it repetitively as a practice, not as a theory. You have to keep doing it as a practice. This one actually will do returns true if the pattern matches the text, false otherwise. Okay, so this is specifically giving that value. The verified text is not doing that. Now let's try and do one more run. Hopefully it will work now. Ah, there you go. I'm glad it worked. So see, for example, even I could not remember that verified text, but just the fact that I could debug and find the problem is what is very, very critical. If I hadn't found the problem, I am not a good developer. I'm not a good Selenium engineer. Now, so ID was one way, and then name also worked. Did you see that? So the first way of identifying using ID or name is fine. But the actual way that I love and always use is something called as xPath. Okay. This is the xPath that you write in a specific manner, and this is the building block for everything that you do with element identification. If you don't know how we will do xPath, then it's a problem. So what is the syntax for an xPath and how do we do it? It is very simple. xPath, the way we do it is you have two slashes and then you say the HTML tag, okay, square brackets at attribute name equals attribute value. That is it. This is the syntax for identifying any element. You could then make it a little bit more complex depending on how it is going to work. So the way we have to do it is absolutely by using these things. So for example, for the first name, if I have to write an xPath, the way is the first thing I have to write is HTML tag. What is the HTML tag for this element? This is the entire element. That is the first word here, and that is input. So we're going to say input. Now what the Selenium IDE is going to do is it will start identifying all the elements in the web page that have a HTML tag of input. It will not waste time on any other things. It will only focus on input. Now, what is the attribute name that I want to use? ID equals, okay, ID is the attribute name. The value is first name. Now, this is writing your own xPath. Does this look simpler, or does the one that we did here, does this look simpler? Definitely this looks simpler. But what should be the one, which should be the one which you will use? You will always use this one. Why? Because it will work for you in all circumstances and you will do it very easily from the script level. Okay? This is absolutely fine. But when you get to the script, this will become very easy for you to do. Script, when I say, is programming. Now, let's see if it works. This is the first thing you should do. If you've done something new, see if you can find it with it. There you go. Okay, so this is the way to write XPath. Now, let's say that you need to write an XPath for this specific element. Now, how do you write an XPath for this element? The way we will do it is right click on it, inspect element with Firebug. Okay, now you see this. Let's go open to the notepad, keep it here, and let's try and write that. You can try to think what it is along with me. What is the HTML tag for this element, please? It is select. Do you see this word select here? So you're going to put select out here. I know the video screen size may be small, but if you play it in full screen while you're watching the video or the live webinar, you can see what it is. Now what? Open square brackets. At what is the attribute name? Let's try ID. Okay. Equals single quotes birthday underscore month and single quotes and square brackets. Now copy this and paste it out here and see if you can find it. Now you will see the issue has come up. It is not finding it. What could be the issue? Is it, so now you have to debug again. The way you debug now is you find out what is it that we're doing. Let's start from the beginning again. Let's verify. Is select the right tag name for this element? This is the first one that I see. Yes. Is ID a good attribute? Yes. Is there now, is birthday underscore month the correct one? Yes. But looks like I made a spell error here. Correct it. Control C and go back to your ID and put it. So team, I know I might be going very slow, but this is my basic fundamentals. If this is not done well, then everything else is down the drain. So I don't mind spending additional time, but this is important for us. So that is how you've identified a theme, this one. Now let's say that you want to identify something else that we have not done so far. How about this checkbox? Right click, inspect element with Firebug. Okay. Now let's try and use something else for the attribute. Why just ID? Okay. Let's say this now is input. I see the HTML tag is input. Open square brackets at name equals persistent. All right. And end square brackets. I've tried name. Let's see now what will happen. Okay. Experiment. There is no correct or wrong answer in it. It is just an experiment and seeing if it is working correct or not. Is it showing up? No. It is telling us locator not found. What could be the reason? Is it because I gave double quotes and not a single quotes? Probably. I am not sure. But I will change it to what I knew earlier and try. See, that doesn't seem to be a reason. Why do you think then it is showing you that name equals persistent? I use this. Then why is it not showing this? Probably there is more than one name equals persistent in the whole web page. Let's say persistent. So I'm searching in this HTML code persistent. Okay. So I found persistent here. Now let me maximize this so I have more options there. So this is the first persistent. Do I have more? Do you see this? There is another name equals persistent here. This is identifying this. This is another word that has come up. Anywhere else? No, only these two places. Then it should show up. Then it should show up. For sure, it must show it up. So what I did is basically I search to see where is name equals persistent anywhere else in HTML. The only two places I got is one here and one here. Then what is the issue? Did I do a spell error? I must have done. There you go. So instead of E, I put an A, and that, come on Firefox, that could be the issue. Don't kill it now, please. Let me make sure that everything is saved. Save test suite as, yes, okay. So now is it identifying it? Let's see. Scrolling the page. Now find. There you go. Now it has identified it. Okay. So how about the double quotes that we used earlier? Is that the reason? Fine. See, that's not an issue. So just assuming that one thing could be an issue is not important. But trying it out is very important. Trying out which solution will work is very important. Alright. So you have tried with name. Now let's see if I can do this with something else. Any other attribute that I can use for the same one? How about ID? I think it will work. How about class? The class has some value. So if you just click in your Firebug, okay, on the property value or the attribute value, that will open up as an edit, and then you can say Control C on it and be able to copy it. But my system is taking a couple of seconds to show. So there you go. Now it's showing up. Okay, I'm going to copy this. So now let me try and write a new XPath. I'll say class. Oh, sorry. Class is not the attribute name. Input is still the HTML tag, and class is the attribute name, not the HTML tag. Equals single quotes this and find. See, I can still find it using this. So there is not one way to identify any element. There are multiple ways to identify different elements that you will see. Okay. Now let's talk about an entirely new test case. All right. Let's take any test case, and let's see if we can create something absolutely new using this new learned art of writing or this. Let's say twitter.com or any application, doesn't matter. I'm just trying it. All right. So here you see there are again different elements. Everything is an element. Okay. So let's talk about and focus on these elements. We'll come to the text and links and all that later. For now, let's just focus on these. So let's talk about this username or email. So the first thing that I need to do is for this test case is I need to start from twitter.com. Right. Next command is to say open the home page, because this is what will open the root folder. Then we'll say type is the command. Where do I type? Now I can say, let's say I want to type a username. I'm going to right click and say inspect element with Firebug. And what you see now is very important for you to find out what you're going to put in there. So which is the element team? I'm happy that I got up this one. Do you see the element here? There is one element that is called label, and then there is another element called input. Which is the one that you want to use? If you look at it, the input is the one which seems to be the one which takes input for your text. Label is more of what you will see here. So for example, I go here, okay, and I change it username. All right, you will see the effect happening on the website. Do you see that? Do you see what I'm doing, team? When you change the HTML code using Firebug, you will see the effect or the information also changing on the application out here. All right. So the way this happens is that when you load a web page, the HTML document or file for that web page gets loaded onto your machine. Then if you change the content of it, what you see also will change. Firebug makes it simpler for you to do that. Why? Because this way developers especially will have a great way to play around with things. Okay. Firebug is hence a very, very good manner for you to be able to quickly make some changes to this website and see what is the difference. So what if I change the height of it here? This is the CSS. Okay, so I don't know if this is for the front card, but let's see if I change it to 50. Now do you see the height of that specific field increasing? So these are the inputs that you can use to see and play around with the application as well. Firebug is in fact a very popular development tool that a lot of people use when they do the application, the front end specifically. Okay. Now here let's talk about the element identification. Let's talk about which one. Now that we've identified input, okay, square brackets at ID equals sign in hyphen email, and then find. Do I find it? No. Why? I missed the 2 backslashes at the beginning. So use that. Now it still doesn't find. Why doesn't it find? Oops. Quotes also and find. There you go. Now it is found. Okay. Why didn't it blink here? It is doing it, but this over thing, this Twitter thing that is there, right? That is the one which is affecting it. So now you could put it, and let's say this I'm going to put it as star thing. All right. Now next one I'm going to say type. All right, and find the password. Right click, inspect element with Firebug, and input again. All right. Open square brackets at let's talk about something. Type is their password. Okay, let's use type equals password. Okay, square brackets, find. Does it find it? It doesn't show me that it found it, but I'm thinking it should be okay. But you cannot be certain unless you actually do something about it. Why is it not finding it? I don't know, but let's see. If we do a run, we will know. Test. Okay, so now let's do a quick run to see if this test case runs. So open twitter.com. Do you see it's gone back to username only? It has not come to the email. Now what happened? This is also a run. It has run successfully. It has not even failed, but it has not even done something on the application. That means that there is some other element with the type called password, and that is not shown to us on the web page. There are sometimes many hidden elements still. So if I right click and go to inspect element with Firebug, back again, and you search now for that word called type equals type equals, oh, I think it's taking it as something. Let's talk about password only. All right, class is password. Next, password, span, password. There's so many passwords. See, there is already a password here. Where is this field? This field is not even visible here. This is already hidden and it's there somewhere else altogether. And that is the reason you should not use anything unless you're sure about it. So go back to this and say that password by itself is not working. Okay. So let's go back to inspect element and see if there's anything else that we can use instead of this. Okay, there is the highlighted text. How about I use name equals session password? Probably yes, I can use this. Let's try this. It's too slow. System is dying. Okay, now while I'm doing this, a couple of things, team. What happens if the only available attribute is password, but there are more than one elements with the same value? What happens if I need to use a combination of values? Or what happens if I know that it starts with a word, but the rest of the word is always changing? What if it contains a specific text? So how do you handle all these dynamic scenarios that keep coming to us? That we're going to do in the next session, but let me quickly fix this one if I can and say instead of type is password, I'm going to say name equals session square brackets password. Okay, and this and say find. See, it has found it because it is, oops, but it could be somewhere else also. It is not necessarily this one. It could be anywhere else in the page. But the best way to do it is run and see if we are able to see that happening. Open Karthik and then test should come here. No, see again, it did it somewhere else. It is using the values in some other elements somewhere to do it. But in tomorrow's session, I'm going to show you how, not tomorrow, in session 4 team. Session 4, just to let you know, will be next Monday only. I will not do a session tomorrow because I want you to complete practicing. Once we get on to Monday, from Tuesday onwards, it's going to be core Java. There's a lot to learn and practice. So I just want you to make sure you're following up and you're not following out. Okay, sign in -password. Now, please do remind me, this is a great session for me to show tomorrow because what this will do is it will give me the ability to teach you a lot of new things on what happens when there are duplicate elements. What happens, how do you identify that? Or is there a way we can do something like a regular expression for it? All of these things are important. Now do you see test has come up here? Okay, but the common syntax is this. Can I use more than one attribute? Can I say ID equals this and something else? How about this and something else? The best way for us to do it is we will create some simple HTML document like this and we will play around a lot with it. Okay, the best way is to use Firebug, change the code, face some challenges, and then go about fixing it. All right. All right, team. So that's about it for today. I just wanted to play around a little bit. Let me save this test case before it vanishes. I'm going to call this as TW sign in TC001. All right. This is another test case. Now, is there any question, please? Why not sign in password? Yeah. So Cynthia, the only reason I didn't use it earlier is I wanted to play around. I know ID is a great value to work with. I know ID typically works, but what happens if I don't use ID? That is the reason I wanted to do that. There is a password field in the sign up section, so probably that's why. Yeah, but in fact, great point. There is a password field at the bottom of this page also, right? Out here. Probably that is why it is doing it. I am actually not worried about an element that is coming after this element because the first priority is for this element. So if this matches, then it will put it in this. The reason it didn't put it for the other ones earlier is there are other elements in the script before here that have similar properties, and that is the reason it didn't take it. Okay, so yes, we can use multiple attributes also. Put like ID equals so on, class equals something, and so on. How do we do that? We will see it in the next one. We can also say, can you identify the third element in the web page with type equals password? Yes, absolutely. That's what we're going to explore next. Where can we find this test case Excel sheet file in ITeLearn.com? Okay, so for now I have not done it, but what I'm going to do is I will start uploading it right away so that you have access to it. So let me go to the ITeLearn website and start uploading it. Now, any questions please on what we've done so far? Sorry, any other questions rather? So important links, I think this also is something we were doing it, right? And IDE automation as well. Okay, copy, oops, or send to a zip folder and I'm going to put it. Why did you use input? The attribute tag is not in attribute tag is not input. Oh, where did I use? Did I do something wrong? I don't know. Let me see. Open up IDE again. Open the test case, which is Facebook, Twitter. No, the HTML tag is input itself. Attribute name, I've changed it. Can we use double quotes also in xPath? Yes, absolutely. I'm using double quotes here. The reason the double quotes and single quotes are important is sometimes you might have to play around with them. Okay, you may need quotes within quotes. There are escape characters also we can use, but this is how you can do it. Single quotes or double quotes are fine. how did you recognize an object in a web page, on a web page in the form? I think Kalyani, that is what I've been showing so far. I don't understand. Basically, you right click, inspect element, and then you go about identify it. Is tomorrow's session okay? Team, sorry, there was a confusion about session 3, and that's why I kept this also open for a lot of you. Session 4 for sure is a members only, please, because we're going to get very deep into a lot of these topics, and I want to make sure that you're all involved in it. Okay. Session 4 is not going to be tomorrow. It will be on Monday. So people who are listening to this, please take a note. If you're watching the video also, do note. It's going to be on Monday. Let's see. This is regarding preview. How do you recognize? Okay. What's it? I launched FireFox first. Then I launched Facebook. Then launched the IDE. But the base URL is not displayed as Facebook. And that is fine. That is the reason, because you launched the URL later, right? So you start recording or go to the base URL and change it. It's a simple thing. Go here and change it. Do we have to be available during the daytime, US time, to participate in the Selenium live project? Nalini, it's a project. Project means that you are working on it. You working means that you are spending time. Okay, that's a different question altogether for the project. So yes, you will have to be available. You may have team. Typically 90% of the participants are from the US. There are also significant participants who will come for this live project from UK, Europe and India. Okay, so we'll have to distribute the time accordingly. Now let me quickly finish off the uploading of the files onto the website. So what I'm going to do is I will be putting it up quickly so that you all can download. So live training, Selenium training, and I'm going to add it. So what I'll do is I will add it right out here, team. Okay, I'm going to put it up here. Your videos are here. The third session, after it convert and upload, I will put it here. I will also put the files till day 1, 2 and 3 out here. Okay. All right. Thank you everyone for joining back. We will see you on Monday for the next session. I know we only had 1 hour session each day for the first 3 sessions. We will now do 2 hours a day so that we can finish it as within the specified 2 weeks that we wanted. So it will be 1 hour, then about 15 minutes break, and then we will catch up again for another hour. There is nothing to practice for you, team, on anything except for on Java or anything. You just have to work on IDE, element identification and xPath. Now that you're looking at the sessions, just practice on them on various websites. Any web page you go, try. Use Firebug, right click and see what it is. And use IDE and see if you can identify it. Thank you all. Bye for now. We'll see you back in the next session then. Thank you. Thank you for joining. Take care. Bye then.